Hello and welcome back to the Steps of Writing Like a Pro with me, Mary Harelkin Bishop. Today we are going to talk about step number 4. But before we do, let's just talk a little bit about the other previous steps that you can find on other videos that are on my YouTube channel. So step 1 is all about ideas. Where do ideas come from? Where do you get ideas? How do you keep ideas that you can't use right now? And that's step 1. Step 2 was where I had you choose one idea and you daydreamed and thought a lot about it. And so step 2, I spent a lot of time in step 2 thinking and daydreaming about my story. Step 3 is along the lines of getting ready to write. And in step 3, it's when I actually sit down and plan out my story. I want to know exactly how it's going to start, some of the things that will happen in the middle, how is it going to end. I want to know who are my main characters. I need to know them really well. So I sometimes even make webs for them. And I often actually, when I write an outline, write down chapter 1, this is going to happen, chapter 2, and so on and so forth. So I've planned my story out. So guess what step 4 is? Today, step 4 is all about writing. And I call that step, write it. Just write, write, write. So that's step 4 today. So when you're writing your story, for me, because I've daydreamed so much and I've had that story, it's like I have this big story bubble over my head, and it's like I poke a hole in this story bubble and it comes through my brain, out my fingers into my computer, and I really just type and type and type. Am I worried about my spelling right now? No. Am I worried about my grammar? No. Am I worried about how I'm putting paragraphs together? Not too much. I really just want to get my story out of my head. When I was a beginning writer, sometimes I would question what I had written. I would think to myself, oh, maybe my main character should be a little bit older or a little bit younger, or maybe this should happen or not that. And I find if I question it, if I don't believe in myself and in my story, then I cut off that flow of creativity that's happening. And so I write my story the way I daydreamed about it and the way I planned it. I can always change those kinds of things, and you too can always change those kinds of things later in the other steps that we're going to talk about. So when you're in step 4, write, 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 then that's exactly what you do. You write it. You let your creativity just flow out of you and you tell your story. And so for me, when I'm telling my story, it's like I have a movie of my story going along in my head, and I'm just telling what's happening in that movie. And that's how I do my very best writing. Here are the things to think about in step 4, which is write, write, write. Just write it. Let it flow. That's where the best creativity comes from, I think. Don't judge it. Don't question whether your character should be older or younger, or change, make it a boy or a girl. Just write it like you planned it all along, and write it like you're telling it to somebody. That sometimes is called finding your voice. So I want you to write, write, write your heart out, and keep that writing up, keep reading, and I will see you soon.